Welcome to the very first Cybersecurity Connection episode. We bring you, the viewer, a new nightly cybersecurity recruiter with at least one junior role and other cyber IT related roles. Tonight, we will discuss red flags during interviews and Scott's cybersecurity career pathway. If you have any questions, please comment. We'll answer questions at the end. If you look under the video, there are links to various content we will discuss during this live discussion. My very first ever guest is Layton Holcombe. Layton, over to you.
Thank you very much, Justin. Sorry for the delay, everyone. We had a few complications. To start out with, rather than get straight to drawing your attention to the jobs that I have, one of the reasons I got into recruiting for cybersecurity several years ago was because I saw that it would be a secure place to be for the future. There's a lot less job security in some areas for millennials today, but it's certainly not in jobs in cybersecurity. There's allegedly over 1 million jobs that are rumored to be remaining open right now. And I will mention about that a little bit. There are several entities that will claim that these jobs, there's over 1 million jobs open, but it's not. There's not zero unemployment within cybersecurity. Some claim that there is. In fact, I have a friend that just claimed it here a couple of days ago on LinkedIn. Not true. One of the reasons jobs go unfilled is that some of those jobs are really pipelining. They're what we call blue sky positions that certain employers and entities have open, and they have high hopes that they're going to win certain contracts, and so they're pipelining talent for that. If we ever do that, we'll let you know on our end, or we'll state it right in the job description that this is a pipeline job for future potential openings. We have a number of jobs. There's a bunch of jobs that are going to be going into Manassas, Virginia. There's a lot of data centers that are moving there, being built right now. There's 2 large entities that I know of that are very well known within the cybersecurity and IT community that are based in Santa Clara that are moving a lot of their large operations to both Ashburn, Virginia, and Manassas. And so watch for those, but we don't place those. We don't put them online. And we have a lot of non-posted positions also, especially at the higher end, that our employers and DoD contractors, for various reasons, for sensitivity issues, don't allow us to post, and we do what we call passive sourcing for those. Another reason for some of those jobs being open and people being underemployed in cybersecurity is because some of you out there that are listening know this very well. There's a lot of positions that are in places like we've got tons of jobs open in, say, Fort Huachuca, Sierra Vista, Arizona. People don't realize that one of the reasons the jobs remain open is because of the location. Another one has to do with the amount of pay that's available for certain DoD contracting jobs that are bid fairly low for various reasons, and people aren't willing to move. And when they're not willing to move for a location or a particular wage level, those jobs remain open, and some people that would qualify for those positions, and say if they were in LA or Austin or any other large urban area, they would grab them in a heartbeat because it's not in a faraway place that there's not a lot else going on. So there are a lot of underemployed people in cybersecurity, just not as much as there are in other verticals. Other than that, I guess we can get straight to talking about some of the positions that we hope have open at Access Talent today. I'd say we're about 50-50 as far as the agency is concerned. About 50% of the positions we have open are within the DoD contracting arena, and 50% are in the private sector, private commercial arena, with high-tech employers anywhere from what we used to call Silicon Valley on the West Coast to all the way up into Albany, New York. A couple of the positions that we have open right now on the junior level junior cybersecurity analyst positions are in Huntsville, Alabama. We call that Rocket City. Those positions require a Security Plus and a couple of years of experience, and that's it. To get in, those are entry-level jobs, and those types of positions with a Security Plus and 2 years of experience, and that would be military experience, would fit that need also. There's no need for private sector experience for those, but 2 years of IT experience of one way or another. You'll see that C++ embedded systems is a plus, but we don't expect anybody with near 2 years of experience in a Security Plus to necessarily have that experience that they carry with them. We also have, I don't know if it's up on the screen available, but you can look at our site. We have a secret clearance required as your infrastructure engineer architect openings, and there are numerous openings for that role, and it's remote. It can be anywhere. You can sit at home and take care of that job. And I'm surprised there aren't more people interested in those, because I know a number of folks that gripe about having to drive into DC per se from Northern Virginia or elsewhere that would appreciate working at home, and those jobs pay well, and there are more and more employers that and DoD contractors that are opening up those jobs. When one entity opens them up remote, then it seems that 2 or 3 follow them, and I just saw an additional employer open those up, and they came to us with those after they saw a competitor of theirs open them, and they came to us and said, we have them too. Let us know if you have anybody available. We've got a senior penetration tester job available still up in Warren, Michigan. Bachelor's degree in computer science, LAN, WAN, VPN experience, network security systems background, and of course, if at all possible, a CEH would help for that, but it's not necessary. However, you do need a secret clearance. There are we've got a few jobs that I'd like to mention real quick that are private sector in nature. I'll go back to a job that's growing like crazy, and that's database security engineer that's in Irvine, California right now, and that is for a very large company that's growing very quickly. That job, if you look it up, if you Google database security engineer, you will see that Wells Fargo has dozens of open positions for database security engineer. If you looked for that, if you Googled that job 2 years ago, you would have found a handful. Something's going on that particular bank knows that others don't, it appears, because you don't see other banks with that job. You see Oracle with that position, and it makes sense because of what they do. So I expect, because of some rumors that I've heard, I expect to see that job growing through other financial entities and competing banks of Wells Fargo. I expect to see that wide open, and there aren't a lot of database security people running around with experience, DB with DBAs with experience in the security arena. Software security engineer in San Francisco. We've got that job does not require any security clearance whatsoever. You can go ahead and look at the job description on that. I don't want to take too much of the audience's time since we started late on that. On this particular broadcast, and web application security engineer, basically building security into applications. Other than that, there is a job out in Tacoma. One of those Santa Clara companies is opening up and growing in Tacoma, Washington. I welcome you to go take a look at that on our website. That is a very well-paying position to build out the platform of that employer. They're building out their own security platform, and that's a position that's having someone that's getting close to possibly being placed, but the employer would maybe like to see some additional folks in that. And that's enough talking about our jobs right now. I'd like to move to talking about red flags in the interviewing process and talk a little bit about resumes.
Yeah, go ahead, Layton.
Okay. Resume recommendations first. And a lot of people will talk about this, of course, name, address, email at the top of the resume, as well as your security clearance if you have one. It's amazing how many people do not put their email or their name on the resume. Now, you can put your name and your address, but if you don't put any contact information, it's a little bit difficult for us to get back a hold of you. So it'd be helpful to have name, address, email, and phone number. And then put your security clearance on there if you have one. Put all of your certifications, not just those that are required in the job description, but I recommend, there are some that don't, but I do. I recommend that you put all of your certifications on there and show what you've earned. If it's a really long list, you can put the ones that you maybe think are pertinent and then mention the see below for additional certs. Make sure that for every job that you apply for, I strongly recommend you get a separate resume for it, because different jobs are looking for different, not every single database security engineer position is asking for the same exact history and certs. Even exact jobs that are exact same jobs have different titles and different requirements for them, and a lot of that is because of who wrote the job description, and we all know the problems that there are with job descriptions not meeting exactly what the employer is looking for, or the hiring manager. A lot of times the hiring manager wasn't involved in writing the descriptions, and they end up getting people that they weren't interested in looking at. And that's not the fault of the candidate. That has to do with the disorganization of the employer. And I guarantee you that outside recruiters and inside recruiters too do everything they can to get HR and the hiring manager and everybody on board with having the descriptions meet the requirements of the actual job that you'll be doing. Hopefully you'll get as far as an interview, and you can hammer that out in your talk with the hiring manager. Red flags. Red flags about the interviewer. First of all, there's a few of them. If the interviewer's late, don't get too excited about it if it's an HR person, but I would be concerned if it's hiring manager. Another red flag is if they haven't reviewed your resume, and I'll state below that a red flag about the potential employee is not bringing 5 copies of your resume with you. Do not assume that they've looked at your resume. Make sure you take some copies with you to hand over to them in case they have looked at it but haven't brought it with them to the room, so that if you're doing it face-to-face, they can take a look at it every now and then to remind them who they're talking to. Red flag of belittling the person that you'll be replacing. If you hear that from the hiring manager, that's might tell you that regardless of how much you need a job, it might not be a place you want to go. If the potential supervisor can't explain the role clearly, that's an issue. If they ever ask you personal questions in the job interview, just politely decline to answer and ask them to provide you the next question. If they check their email during your meeting, that has happened to a few of our folks. You just do the best you can to deal with it and smile and move on. If there are bad reviews about the employer on Glassdoor, that happens quite often. People gripe, and they don't like to say they don't bother to go say nice things about them, their previous employer, their current employer. Glassdoor has a lot of negative things on it. If you go and you take a look at a prospective employer, after your interview or before it, and you see consistent 90% nasty comments, then maybe there's something to be concerned about, a toxic culture at that particular entity. Red flags about you that the employer will look at. Extreme opinions on social media, and trust me, they do look. I am engaged with my company, Cybersecurity Talent, by more and more private sector employers to employ people that have OSINT human collection and open source collection tools to take a look at what you're sharing on social media, what your family members are even sharing on social media about the company that you may be working at that has sensitive data, and whether or not that sensitive data may be getting out on social media. Keep your extreme opinions on there off of social media. Also, if you have a wide open Facebook, expect to have folks look at it. They may never, ever tell you that it influenced the job decision, but it often does. Explain gaps of employment in your resume. If you have gaps, that's a red flag. It bothers hiring managers. You may never get to a hiring manager if HR sees a big gap and it's not explained. Share that you took a sabbatical, put the dates on there. Share that you had to take care of a family member, that you chose to take care of a family member for a year and a half. Explain your gaps in your employment as best that you can. Do not leave gaps. Already talked about extra copies of resumes. Also in the gaps, if you worked for an intelligence organization that will not allow you to speak much about what you did for 17 years, like a buddy of mine that I work with, mention that it was intelligence community and share what skills that you learned and what tools that you can generically explain that relate to the private sector as best you can. Do not leave it blank and just said, I had a confidential job. That will make it very difficult for you to get an interview. Don't be late. Don't ever be late. If you're going to be late, make sure you have a phone number to call and warn the interviewer that you will be showing up late, and find out whether or not they'd like for you to reschedule if you're going to be more than 5 minutes late. Be comfortable, but do not underdress. If you work for Google, fine. But if you're going next door and you're interviewing with someone that's a competitor, don't expect that it's okay to wear a dirty T-shirt and 15-year-old Birkenstocks to the interview. I strongly suggest that you overdress. Now, if you happen to be stressed and for time, and you must go from work directly to the interview, state that I apologize if I'm underdressed a little bit, but I came directly from work and I didn't want my employer, my hiring manager to they're someone that watches me very closely, and I did not want them to have an idea that I was at an interview for a long lunch today. Never belittle your previous supervisor or company. Never, ever do that. Never talk down who you've worked for in the past, or either the company or your supervisor, even if you're led to by the interviewer. Don't do it. Stay on point. Answer the questions. Don't wander. Don't share about your personal stuff. I have numerous people that I interview that want to go on and on about their personal relationships or stuff they do outside of work. The employer really, at an earlier stage, has absolutely no interest in that. Don't have the time to hear it. Keep it on point, answer the questions directly, and move on. If you're asked about a hobby, keep it G-rated. And I'll leave that up to your own. I'm sure most of you understand what I'm saying there. Don't look at your watch or your phone during the interview. Turn them upside down. Turn your watch around on your wrist and put your phone upside down, or keep it in your pocket. Make consistent eye contact. If you're not someone that does that on a regular regular basis, find someone to practice with. People like being looked in the eye. Don't stare at them, but learn to practice that skill. It used to be said that folks that work in IT are all nerds, and they don't know how to look anyone in the eye, and I just don't believe that. Most individuals are fairly good communicators, and it's just good to learn that habit, at least for the interview. That's about it. One other thing, don't talk about salary during your first interview. Even if you're asked about it, state that you need to learn more about the job requirements before you're willing to get to speaking about what salary you're interested in having. And I would not, if you're asked what your current salary is, I would state that I'll share that with you at a later time. I don't care to share it now. There's an issue of giving more power to the employer than need be. There are some states where it's somewhat illegal to ask that question. A lot of DoD contractors ask us to ask that question, and I tell them I don't like to ask it. And if you want me to work with you, I'm not going to ask it when I first dig into an interview with someone. I will ask you, if you interview with me or one of our remote recruiters, we will ask, what's the minimum that you're willing to accept to move to that new position or any new position? And we will write that down for negotiations later. If we get a verbal offer that we call you about, and we'll let you know, and we get a verbal offer and it's $2K below what your minimum is, what do you want to do? And we keep it for us, but we try not to put the employer anymore in any larger power position, is what I call it, than we need to do. We try to keep it 50-50 for you. Certifications. Get a Security Plus, period. Those of you that are in DoD contracting, take a look at what I call DoD-approved 8570 baseline certifications. Google that and go to that page. You can find it at iase.disa.mil, and then it goes on further. If you email me or ask Justin after this YouTube broadcast, I'll give you a link for that. But go to the DoD-approved 8570 baseline certs, and that'll give you an idea of when they ask you for an IAT level 1 or 2 or 3, in the job description, that'll tell you what they're looking for and the certs that meet that particular requirement. I'd like to talk, Justin, I'd like to talk about cybersecurity academies. I feel like I'm running on here if we have time.
Yep. So Layton, I have the CyberSeek actually on the screen right now if you want to discuss it a little bit.
Yeah, the cybersecurity career pathways, there's networking, and when you talk about feeder roles, and this isn't perfect, I've had a couple of people get a hold of me when I talk about this. It's not perfect. No particular interactive map is ever meets everybody where they're at in every job, but there are feeder roles that we talk about, and I really love this interactive page that cyberseek.org has put together. And when you click on networking, it'll show you that there are 4 areas of entry-level positions. And then when you click on each one of those, it takes you somewhere else. And all 3 out of 4 of those entry-level jobs take you to all 3 of the mid-level positions: the cybersecurity analyst, consultant, and penetration and vulnerability tester for on the networking and software development side. On the networking side. Software development, a lot of software development jobs will skip you straight to mid-level. They're on a lot of entry-level positions in cybersecurity and software development, and there's different reasons why. It's basically the networking role is it's the gateway, and that's why Security Plus and then maybe Network Plus are pretty important certs to have to start out with. But take a look at this and play around with it a little bit, and go down below to the common job titles and top skills, the skills to add in the different sectors within security intelligence and financial risk analysis. When you click on each one of these feeder roles, like networking, go down below. Look at the common job titles, and then click on software development, not just the map up above, but down below. Look at the common job titles, top certifications for all four of those first jobs. And then when you go to the second level, the entry level, the mid-level, each area will give you basic average salary, and we're talking average. Don't get too picky about this. This is just to assist you in taking a look at the top certifications that are requested, the type of education expected. Like my son, I placed him at Microsoft. When was it? My oldest son, I placed him at Microsoft 11 years ago. He only had 2 years of college, and just about everybody that was there when he showed up after his interview and he got accepted had a bachelor's degree. And they did ask him to go get one after he showed up there in Redmond. However, in fact, I think Jordan's listening to this tonight to see how well I do here. But he went ahead and got his degree. However, the kid had been programming since he was 9, and if you've got that type of a background, it'll show up if you can get an interview. The main thing is getting an interview without that education. So just don't think that 74% of the cybersecurity analysis that analysts that get a job have a bachelor's or graduate degree. Don't be too concerned if you've been doing this job, say in the military or elsewhere, without a degree, or other jobs that build up to being an analyst. Don't be too concerned about that degree. There are employers and hiring managers that went there before you without that degree. That's enough said on the pathway.
So this is something that I've talked to a few times, Layton, to a few people that have messaged me over the last week or two since I've started this whole thing up, is I see them with a bachelor's degree in, say, cybersecurity or IT, networking, something of that nature, but then I don't see an actual cert or something else with that. And I feel like that path, no one grabbed them and said, hey, you might want to also pick up some certs along the way. They are more fed of, hey, let's just get this degree, and then they get out here and they look into the job market and they're like, okay, I have my bachelor's, where can I go? And then all these job boards are saying you have to have Security Plus, CIF, CH, you name it. So to the people that are starting out, I mean, you would recommend them to really take a look at these jobs prior to even starting down this path, correct?
Right. Look at the job roles that you're considering taking, and there's also another handout that I gave to you that I'd recommend, Justin, that you make available to everybody, that shows cybersecurity domains. It's a huge domain map that a friend of mine put together about a year ago, and it's okay to pass it out. He gave me his permission. So he's a CISSP and a manager over 1,000 people or more. But yeah, take a look at what the requirements are. I will tell you, you can get into a job without a bachelor's degree, but you're not going to get into a job without a Security Plus if they ask for it. The chances of you getting in there are very, very slim without those certifications. There are a lot of gripes within the cybersecurity community of people that were in information security before it progressed and had the cyber name put on there, label, that they do complain about people gaining certs when they don't have them because they didn't bother when they were earlier in their career. They gripe about people having certs and then getting jobs with no experience. That is a problem. One of the concerns that I have is the number of jobs that are out there that are really gateway jobs. they ask for a Security Plus, and then they'll ask for 2 years of experience. Those people are rare. Where do you get 2 years of experience of all the gateway jobs available request 2 years of experience? And the employers know this. So if you have an internship, at least an internship somewhere, or volunteer work, and by the way, meetups are so important for you. If you're anywhere near any of them, and look up meetups, Google them, and then find out where they're at. Get to know people in the cybersecurity community and find out who's hiring, make friends with them, because having those certs and then getting to know people, make connections on LinkedIn, as many as possible. Now, if you have to be in the DoD sector or in the cleared community, you need to be much more careful about making connections. Some of you may have heard recently about the China doing some recruiting on LinkedIn. And because of it, this last week, I've seen some of my connections drop off LinkedIn because of the concern that their DoD, the end client employer of them, has about the exposure to some of these hits that people are taking on being recruited. That's always a concern. LinkedIn is a lot looser today for the cleared community than it used to be. One of the things you can do on LinkedIn, by the way, and making these connections and asking people about particular jobs, is to take a look at who your common connections are. And if somebody reaches out to you or you're interested in reaching out to someone else, look at the common connections that you trust. And if that person has a fair amount of them, then it's not totally safe, but it's fairly fair to say that it's safer to connect with the people, with someone that has several people in common with you that are in the cleared community.
Okay, so at this time, I'm going to go over to that Intuitus that we mentioned at the bottom of this feed. If you want to speak to that real quick.
One of the things that I've done, and I started getting into InfoSec 10 years ago when I saw this, and then cybersecurity, when I saw this need coming, and I started 3 years ago looking at Cybersecurity Solutions and teams that did a comprehensive job that provided cybersecurity solutions for anyone from the smallest employer to the largest entity in the world, and who could provide affordable services for anyone from the smallest employer to the biggest guy out there. And I came up with these folks, and they were gracious enough to allow me to join their team. I've never sold a solution ever. I've always been an ops guy. I had one job where I was a business developer, but I basically was taking a healthcare company and helping its grow the number of doctors that worked for them and did examinations on military personnel and DoD contracting needs and helping them grow across the U.S. But as far as selling a solution or a product, this is the only one that I've taken a risk to put my name on. I'm glad I did. You can read about this and take a closer look at it. But when we're providing talent, I've seen that there's a problem with especially small to mid-sized employers, having difficulty keeping decent talent on board. And this 24/7 tool and team that's available, there's a lot of managed services that you should consider maybe as an employer within cybersecurity, joining a SOC team, someone that has a 24/7 SIM and that has a good reputation. There's a lot of brand names out there that have a lot of business, and they employ a lot of cybersecurity people. This particular one, if someone has a need for managed services, I strongly recommend you take a look at them, mainly because this particular team and product, Intuitus, was developed by Boeing Labs. It's an agile solution. It's been around for 10, 11 years. or longer. It continues to get tweaked. It's affordable mainly because Boeing Labs pays for the research and development, and the end client does not. And CBA has been entrusted to provide this to the private sector. It's already protecting DoD, very highly sensitive DoD elements, and trusted to do that. And it's elsewhere that's confidential, and I'm not at liberty to share where it is elsewhere, maybe within government hierarchy. But it's one that I recommend you take a look at. And that's enough said there.
Okay, so at this time, Layton, so if someone wants to, well, before getting into questions, if someone wants to apply for a position, should they submit a resume and then also get in touch with you?
If they want to work with us, I suggest they do one of many different things. Take a look at what jobs are on the board, but you could also send us a generic resume like folks are doing, and just go to accesstalent.today and click on the tab that basically is for candidate rather than jobs, and send us your generic resume, and then send me an email to Layton at accesstalent.today and ask me questions. I make myself available every day. I work evenings also. I've worked from home remotely. All the recruiters that work with us work from home. I've worked from home for the last 23 years, and I do work Saturdays also.
And on holidays.
Yeah, obviously. I love what I do. Cybersecurity is so much fun, and it will be growing. It'll be around long after I'm gone. And it just offers, I've talked my third son into switching from math and business. My third son has joined me. The second one's in network. He's a network engineer also. And the third one has switched to cybersecurity with WGU. And I'll talk a little bit of that if we have time. I'll talk a little bit about online degrees too, in addition to training academies.
Yeah, let's start with the question and answers. So the first one I have is from Vlad the Maker again.
Oh, okay.
So he's asking, would you want to ask the HR person about the dress code for culture match purposes?
Yes, absolutely. HR, actually, for that question, the safest place is HR rather than maybe a friend or an acquaintance. HR will set you straight and let you know the best way to dress when you come in.
Next one is from Nikki. Asks, for an entry-level role, what technical security questions should you be prepared to answer? I kind of answered it saying that if it's like a cert-based role, you should at least be able to speak to the questions and data that would be on that cert.
Right. Also, ask your recruiter what questions will be asked, if at all possible, or ask an acquaintance on LinkedIn if you can get a hold of somebody and get to know them. But with anything that we offer, we will let you know what you can expect. And in fact, a lot of our employers, like the one I mentioned in Tacoma, they will send you a practice test even prior to the technical exams being given. And those folks are they have a vested interest, but they'll let you practice a little bit, but then they'll surprise you on what they give you. And the actual exam will be pretty tough. That's why they give you a little bit of a practice time. But we will let you know, and most recruiters will let you know what you're expected to know in the technical interview when you get to it.
Very good. So the next one is Stephanie. Stephanie asks, do you see any value in traditional education paths as opposed to cert route?
As opposed to what route?
The certifications.
You've got to get certs. I like training academies for people that have experience to go ahead and get your certs. If you've got, say, experience in the military, I strongly recommend training academies. And I will share one. I normally don't do this. I really like Secure Set. And if they happen to be near you, take a look at them. There's a ton of academies out there, but those folks know what they're doing and they're honest. But when it comes to traditional education in the past, a IT computer science degree really does not prepare you for cybersecurity. However, a lot of these online schools in the last year or two, that is doing a very good job of preparing people. One example for what is becoming traditional is, say, Western Governors, WGU, that actually my third son that I recommended, he go to it. If you check online, cybersecurity online education, you will find a link to, and I'll provide that for you too, Justin, for the listeners that are interested. You get past those that are basically advertisers on there and look at the rankings, and they have a lot of different ways they rank. But that particular school, you get your certs along the way with your degree. If you do not pass the cert exams to get your certs, you do not pass the class. And I think that is the best possible.
Again, Vlad the Maker, thoughts on offensive security certs?
Oh, if you're headed that path, yeah, for offensive security, it's a narrow niche, but we need more and more folks out there. We need. I assume you're talking about penetration testing and certified ethical hackers in that type of arena, but yeah, they are absolutely necessary for a beginning job. No. For jobs that come along later and get more into theory also, yes. If that's the way you want to go, you've got to get those certs.
Okay, and the next one I had was, NJ asked, if they don't have the cert but they have the training, what do you recommend?
It's tough. Mainly is you've got to gain a colleague and a friend that's where the meetups come in. Because if you've got the training, and I there's a number of people that I talk to every day, especially coming out of military sectors and different military services, they've got awesome background, but they don't have certs. I recommend that they do it one of those 20-week training academies and go ahead and get their certs and take time off. It may hurt you in the short run, may hurt your pocketbook, but trying to get a position without those certs is very, very difficult. Now, if you've got really strong experience and you happen to want a DoD contracting position, and you have an active clearance, then you may be able to go ahead and get a job without a cert if you have a clearance. But if you're looking at private sector positions and you carry in only experience, you're going to have to be awfully good at what you do. Like I gave example of somebody that I helped place 11 years ago. That person, they had certs out the wazoo, no experience except for a couple interesting weird jobs that they had in high school and in college. But they had all kinds of certs and an excellent 2-year education with a full ride scholarship. They just got tired of taking. They got rid of all their higher level classes and didn't take any lower level ones. And so there are some people that are able to get those positions without the certs, but it's difficult. I recommend the training academies to go for full circle on that answer.
Okay, thank you again for that, Layton. So the next person had a question about does physical versus online colleges, does that weigh in whenever you actually are applying for a position, going in for an interview? Like, is it looked at differently?
Not anymore. Used to be. There are some people that are that still. There are a few that went to the brick and mortar schools versus the online schools, but those there are schools that are strongly recognized, and there are some brick and mortar schools. One's University of Maryland has an excellent school. Penn State, there are some that are really strongly recognized as providing excellent educations. There is absolutely no need to spend that money unless you just want to. I know people that they want to rub elbows with others rather than sit at home or at Starbucks and take the online classes. They learn better. They say they learn better in the classroom and being able to rub elbows with other students. But the online experience is getting to the point of where they do. These schools have a reputation to uphold in the type of people that they provide to prospective employers and internships. These online schools are providing awesome internships now also, especially, there are some that serve the private sector, and there are some that serve DoD contracting, even agencies. There are some schools that are very well known by a particular three-letter acronym agency that actually even gives its stamp of approval to some of these schools. I happen to recruit for that agency, but I don't mention their name on the phone, on a broadcast.
Okay, I think that wraps up for all the questions. Do you have any last closing remarks, Layton?
Yeah, let me go back to my notes that I have here. Job boards. I'd like to share just briefly. As a job seeker, there's all kinds of job boards that you can go to look for jobs. I recommend for those that are in the cleared community that you look at clearance jobs and clearedjobs.net. Clearance Jobs has both employers and agencies on it. Clearedjobs.net strictly has direct employers. By agencies, I mean recruiting agencies for clearance jobs. Cleared Jobs, you've got to be a direct employer to offer anything on there. Clearance Jobs is a much bigger job board, but you do expose yourself to people like us on that particular platform. Do not fudge a little bit on your resume or your experience or your security clearance. If you have a secret clearance, don't say you've got a TS, SCI. They'll check you out and you'll get bounced. And so be absolutely 100% honest. If you don't have a clearance currently, do not go on clearance jobs. Don't go there. It's for active clearance only. There are tons of other job boards out there. Indeed, I used to not like Indeed. I do now, just because of the way that they behave, and you're able to apply with one click. Once you go, you put a decent cover letter on there that's somewhat generic, so that you can send it to multiple employers for different types of jobs, and put a decent resume on Indeed, and then you can click away on jobs. LinkedIn, Monster, Career Builder, Dice for people that are more like software developers. Develop decent resumes and get them on there. Have multiple resumes available for different types of positions. And you really need to be on those job boards. At LinkedIn, I love LinkedIn and Indeed, those two, and then Clearance Jobs for the cleared people, and then Dice for software developers. I also subscribe to Career Builder as a recruiting agency, because we get the number of views that we get on Career Builder is huge. So we stay on there. We like the number of people we're able to look at for the amount of money that we pay. That's about it for now. I'll make myself available for any questions that you have afterwards or in the next several days. Anytime you want to reach out by email. I've got I need to get back to from a practice talk that we gave on Wednesday. I owe 4 or 5 of you a phone call and some emails back and forth, but I greatly appreciate being able to present.
And I do appreciate you, Layton, coming on, especially since it's my first episode. We worked out some kinks last time and had a few extra ones this time, but for the most part, we went pretty well. I do have a few extra questions. Do you want to take them, or do we want to?
Sure.
Okay. All right, perfect.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
So Matthew first started. He said, "So are there specific schools that stand out to you as exemplary?" What he was meaning was, how might they compare to Cyberware, Udemy, or Coursera? I can't decide one.
All right, let me go here just a minute. I'm at a different system, so I need to go to my cheat sheet. There it is. Go to bestcolleges.com, features /features /top online bachelors in cybersecurity. You'll see the methodology on there as to how they rank their particular, how they make their ranking. It gives minimum requirements, ranking factors, admission rate, enrollment rates, retention, 6-year graduation rate. I have tested their rankings, and they're pretty right on. Part of the ranking also has to do with the affordability, 25% of the total score. And so there are some excellent schools. Now, you go past the featured online programs, because those are people that just pay to be on there. Go past that. Talks about choosing a program, gives you some very good advice. And then go down below. Rated number 1 is Western Governors. I influenced my third son, who's a recruiter with me for our company, to finish his bachelor's degree at WGU online. Their graduation rate is low. The cost is fairly low, but the education that you get there includes tons of certs. They give an excellent education. Part of the reason the graduation rate is low is because it's tough. It's very difficult, but at the same time, some people will get their lower level certs and then they'll jump out and go take a job. And that does happen. And I don't blame them. It's just the way some people behave. I love that school. There are other ones that are rated at the top. Liberty University is excellent. Wilmington is a school that's rated 4th. That's an excellent school by my knowledge. I'm aware of them. Bellevue University, I believe that's out in Nebraska. And then University of Maryland that I mentioned already, they have a great brick and mortar, but they're also rated here in the top 9 schools. There's one that's down the road a ways, and I don't understand why. I think it has to do, Dakota State is an awesome school, but it is expensive. Its cost is up there a little way. It's online. It's an excellent school, but the price is a little bit higher. And then any of these schools that are in the top 25 that are listed are awesome schools, but you want to try to be toward the top end on the top 10 if at all possible. The ones that I mentioned: University of Maryland, Bellevue, Wilmington, Liberty, and WGU. I don't know much about Excelsior. I'm not familiar with them. However, since they're based in Albany, New York, that's becoming another small Silicon Valley, and you'll have a strong chance of getting a job if you happen to be close by, but also online with them.
All right, so I got 2 more questions real quick. So one was, cloud computing is big. Do you see the value of CCSP cert?
Mm-hmm. And I was going to mention that. Didn't get to it. It was in my notes. Security for the cloud is, that cert's important for the future. It's not as huge right now as some of the other certs, but everybody's transitioning, and there's all kinds of arguments depending on whether your entire focus of your company is based on providing cloud services. So those folks are somewhat biased in what they have to share, but just about everybody out there is transitioning their data to the cloud, and there are concerns that you will learn by getting that cert about how to, when someone puts their data on the cloud, you'll learn in getting that cert why is data on the cloud any more secure than it is if it's on a very secure system that's backed up in Fort Knox. And there are concerns about cloud security, and will be more and more. You see all the time about AWS issues, maybe an internal, I think it was a salesperson that caused a leak of some information there that shouldn't have happened. But you'll see more and more problems due to people switching quickly to the cloud, and all the cloud is a server somewhere else. Is that server protected? Yes or no? There are a lot of questions there, but those certs are going to become more and more valuable in the very near future.
And thank you for that, Layton. So that was the last question. Again, thank you for spending this hour with me, and to the viewers, thank you for tuning in, asking questions. Like I said, every night we're going to have a new guest on. Layton was a great first host, great. So thank you for tuning in to Cybersecurity Connection, where we connect you, the viewer, to a new recruiter focused on cybersecurity each and every night. Link to the job website and contact information is below. So please do connect with Layton and myself. And again, see you again tomorrow night.
Thank you very much.